Hello, welcome to Unite Idea Talks podcast, where IDEA stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity and Accessibility Talks. This is the 6th episode. Following the institutional workshop that took place on the 13th of November, we are going to explore the topic of politeness, kindness inside university. And in particular, the title of this episode will be The Road to Institutional Politeness. Today, we'll talk about this theme with two professors of Politecnico di Torino, Chiara Gastaldi and Chiara Ravetti. Now we are going with the first question about the origins and the context of the project. Chiara, how did the idea of promoting politeness as an institutional style at Politecnico di Torino come about?
Well, that's a great question, because the idea of promoting politeness really as an institutional style within Politecnico di Torino has come from two different places. It stems overall from the awareness that the well-being of people, for students, teachers, technical administrative staff, everybody at the university, definitely politeness is a fundamental element for the quality of university life and, as a consequence, the quality of education and work. But this awareness comes from two different places. First, it emerged as a strategic perspective. In recent years, the university has been developing a very strong and growing focus on inclusion, sustainability, interpersonal relationships, and so this has led to the need of promoting concrete actions and behaviors that support a collaborative, respectful, and welcoming environment. Second, this awareness has emerged from data evidence. Every 2 years, the Politecnico collects some well-being surveys among its population. And from this data collection, it emerged a strong need to bring to the surface the themes of polite, respectful, and kind communication due to a significant percentage of examples of harassment and non-kind, non-polite communication. So, overall, this initiative was rooted in this very real need to improve daily relationships and in the strategic choice to strengthen Politecnico's identity as a community that truly cares about people, both academic and scientific excellence, but also about its full population.
Okay, thank you, Chiara. We are going to make a question to Chiara Gastaldi. And how does this initiative fit into the broader framework of the Gender Equality and Diversity and Inclusion Wellbeing Plan, which will take place in 3 years from 2025 until 2027?
Thank you for the question. In fact, this data-based approach that Chiara was mentioning earlier promoted the creation of this new plan, and in its earlier version it was just a gender equality plan, but it became, as you were saying, gender equality, diversity, inclusion and well-being plan. And in detail, there's a whole pillar which is dedicated to promoting the diffusion of a culture of respect. And in fact, we also have a micro action, which is promoting a PoliTO politeness communication register that focuses on empathy and kindness. And this PoliTO politeness, which is an effective slogan, is not just a slogan. In fact, it's truly, and it's not to be intended only as a behavioral gesture, but it's really what we think a tool that can enhance diversity, promote equity, and foster an institutional culture that is really attentive to people. And so, in detail, I think that this initiative contributes to the plan on two complementary levels. We have the cultural level, because it promotes language and communication style that supports inclusion, cooperation, mutual respect, the way you respond to emails, the time you send emails, for instance, and everything that is in line with the gender equality, diversity, inclusion plan. But also on an organizational level, because it introduces practices, replicable practices, like microactions that foster more welcoming work environments or also study environments, and increases the perceived well-being and the effectiveness of internal relationship between workers, between staff and teachers in general. So I think politeness can become a strategic and cross-cutting element of the gender equality, diversity, inclusion, and well-being plan, and can make the institutional culture of Politecnico more solid and sustainable.
Thank you, Chiara. Now we're going to move to another aspect of politeness. So we're going to explore the kindness as an organizational and communication value. Chiara, what role does language play in building a culture of respect and active listening?
Well, as we know, language is not a neutral tool. It's a very important instrument that actively shapes our thoughts, our perceptions, and crucially, relationships. It's one of the key elements that determines how relationships evolve, especially in an organization, in a workplace. So in our institution at Politecnico, we try to intend language as an instrument for inclusion, as a tool to facilitate a culture of kindness and respect. And to make it more inclusive, it can become such when it adopts an intersectional approach. So whenever we can recognize all parts of someone's identity, both social and cultural, then that person will feel empowered, will feel heard, will feel part of the organization and valued fully for its identity. So everything from culture to gender to class to abilities to sexual orientation and much more. If we can be aware in our speaking, in our writing, in all the forms of communication and language that are used in the workplace of this factor mix, we can then acknowledge the unique experiences, both negative of discrimination and of privilege, and make difficulties more transparent, and at the same time make people feel heard. So this is particularly important when empowering people from marginalized communities that have been voicing their concerns regarding the use of language for a very long time. So this has been especially important, for example, for racialized communities, for LGBTQIA+ communities. And in their cases, it has been really a pivotal element to make their voices heard, their identities acknowledged. And in this sense, let me add one more thing. Active listening is also a crucial element of this communication, of this inclusive language process. It's really crucial because it's what makes speakers feel heard, feel valued, feel understood. And that is what ultimately can create a cohesive, equal, and just environment and ultimately society.
Okay, thank you. Chiara, as a professor and a part of academic community of Politecnico di Torino, can you share a best practice or an example of a situation in which politeness improved the quality of a process or a relationship?
I have two examples. One is about a collaborative project between one of the departments here at PoliTO and a group of students that were dealing with a multidisciplinary laboratory. So at the beginning of the project, there was some tension because the deadlines were not clear. There were different expectations on both sides, and there were in general misunderstandings between the technical staff that was managing the lab and the students and the professors. So to improve the atmosphere, the coordinator introduced a very simple practice, a moment of gentle alignment at the beginning of the week, where everybody could express their difficulties, propose solutions, ask for things from the other participants, or publicly thank a colleague that helped them solve a problem. In addition, a more collaborative tone was adopted in the emails that were sent, with a more careful opening and closing formulas at the beginning and at the end of the emails that were focused on active listening. And in very little time, there were tangible improvements because, in fact, the conflicts were reduced, students were happier and performed better. The project progressed more quickly, the technical work increased thanks to a more fluid dialogue with the lab staff. So these misunderstandings were not holding back the project itself anymore. So in this case, kindness was not an extra thing, but was a real organizational tool. And it's something that we can all practice ourselves. In fact, I try to do so with my students. I have some PhD students, and maybe at the beginning or at the end of, typically at the end of our weekly talks, I ask them, well, if I see that they are worried about something or maybe a bit mad about something, I ask them directly, are you mad? Are you worried about this thing? And sometimes it's very, they voice their concerns, and it helps them, and it helped me help them better, make them perform better, make them get them to a position where they can perform better, and they feel heard, and the conflicts do not fester, they get solved much more quickly.
Okay, let's go back to the 13th of November, of the day of the workshop, the I Live PoliTO Politeness workshop. Chiara, what were the main objectives of the workshop and how was it structured?
All right, so let's start with the objectives. There was a big overarching theme, which was to put the first steps down to create a set of guidelines, best practices, actions that represented the basis for action to be implemented in the coming years. With this overarching goal, a group of very heterogeneous people, around 50 academic and administrative staff, gathered together for this event, for this workshop. Now, the more precise goals of the workshop were then, first of all, to collect the views of these participants, and so trying to make them brainstorm about how to develop a welcoming approach based on respect, listening, and trust in their professional experiences and through professional relationships. And second, the idea was to start discussing what existed, what had been done so far, and how in the future we could build a new and shared vision of well-being. In practice, what we did was participants were invited to join some round tables. Each round table had a moderator that collected the feedback of the people discussing in that context. Before each discussion, there was an inspirational talk set by 2 feedback sessions. And then moderators simply collected the group's comments, views, and opinions regarding the inspirational talks, regarding some guided questions, and anything else that the participants felt like sharing. The interesting thing was that in real time, as these comments were collected and typed up by the moderators, some of these comments were also projected in the background, so other participants in other roundtables could see them. A key phase before the workshop that was very important for the structure of the workshop was that the moderators were trained themselves to be, first of all, very much aware of the themes discussed in the workshop, but also in active listening and being very present and capable of moderating these interactions, giving enough space to everybody and making sure that everyone at the table felt heard.
Okay, still about the workshop PoliTO Politeness. What insights or concrete proposals emerged during the working sessions?
The keywords used by the participants were meaningful. The most common ones were respect, kindness, empathy. But the most interesting thing, I think, was a set of shared values that emerged from all the round tables. And the values, I think I can sum them up in a few. There was trust to enforce professional equity and mutual respect. There was care to target work-life balance. There was transparency for clear and shared information and roles. Humanity, meaning dignity, So focusing on people more than on measurements or on data. So recognizing that the other person is in fact a person. Listening to understand and build collaborative relationships, not just hear but listen. And sharing to build a mutual sense of community, patience, and also gentleness. There was not only words but also concrete actions that were proposed that came up from the discussions at all the round tables to facilitate politeness. So some of them were targeting the reduction of competitiveness, eliminating time pressure, or in general the other effects of the culture of performance. So being expected to perform at all times during the week and to reach a certain target of productivity. But there were also proposals to establish relaxing spaces within Politecnico, to also think of onboarding procedures for newcomers, being it students or in general staff. So to protect the right to disconnect when you're not working, and also to engage decision makers into designing specific actions. So to have this cultural politeness coming from not just bottom up but also top down. And also participants emphasize the importance of adopting an inclusive language, because as we discussed earlier, language is really a tool and it's not neutral. And to use a nonviolent communication toolkit, and also with training sessions for people, for example, being able to give feedback to one of the people that you are maybe managing in a productive way and in a non-violent way, but still give feedback, for instance.
Okay, thinking about the future, so the results of this important and interesting workshop, how do you think will the workshop results be transformed into operational actions or guidelines?
So the workshop was a first step, but it's going to be a critical starting point for the process of cultural transformation that we hope will take place within the Politecnico. The idea is, first of all, the next step from directly emerging from the workshop will be to draft a manifesto of shared values that the community of the entire Politecnico can recognize itself into, and that can promote these values that emerged bottom up from the workshop in a way that is continued over time and does not remain isolated to this single event. In the even longer run, the idea is then to include and implement even further some of the actions, the values and the ideas that have been revolving around these themes into an updated ethical code for Politecnico di Torino, which should incorporate these values more and more. Now, obviously, transforming all that emerged from this workshop into a manifesto and then into the updated ethical code and then into all the operational actions that have been suggested will not be a sudden, immediate implementation. It cannot be done top-down, because otherwise it would really betray the principle of putting individuals at the center. But hopefully it will be a guided approach that seeks to co-design the entire process with the population of Politecnico, recentering individuals and recognizing the value of the community rather than just workers as operational resources.
Okay. Now I want to conclude this interesting podcast with a question that I want to make to each of you. It is a personal question. What does being polite mean to you personally within an academic work environment, so inside PoliTO?
For me, being polite means recognizing humanity into the students, workers, staff that I deal with, and so if I recognize humanity, so I'm just as you, I will try to listen to you as well as I can, and I will try to put you in a place where you can perform as well as you can. So that for me is a good part of being polite, and of course to expect that other people do the same with me.
Okay. You?
Well, for me, it's in two parts. There is one part that is really about being clear, and sometimes politeness can be confused with being constantly nice to everyone. But I suppose instead, if we really want to be kind, it's really important to also be honest and clear, and sometimes even to set up boundaries, not in a harsh way, using a kind language, but without creating false expectations or illusions, or not communicating feedback clearly. So this is something I try to work on. I have to admit I'm not always successful at it, but I think it's more polite than just being nice and not being clear. And the second point really echoes what Chiara also mentioned before me, is that I really try to put the same care and effort in treating with kindness and politeness everybody around me, irrespective of their position, of their power, of whether they can give me something valuable or not. And this is difficult because we sometimes adopt a different register or tone if we are talking to an academic professor or a young student or the cleaning lady or a lab technician. But it's really, to me, this care in trying to apply politeness universally, in a sense. That's what I try to do in my work.
Okay, thank you, Chiara and Chiara, very much for your time, for your deep answers, and also because you have proved that kindness and politeness can be a possible institutional way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giorgio.
Thank you.